Hello, and welcome to The Kosh. I'm your host, Timber Smith, and The Kosh is a podcast that spotlights people who've had an association with The Kosh and the surrounding Fox Cities area. Kosh listeners, how are you doing? Also, real quick, I want to say that this episode of The Kosh is sponsored by Sturgeon Spirits Craft Distillery, The Kosh's newest tradition. Big shout out to my favorite people over there at Sturgeon Spirits. And normally I do a little small talk at the beginning, but you know what? We have a special guest this week. And Kosh listeners, you know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm about to say. I don't know how I continue to get these amazing guests, and this week is no different. Actually, this is a fire episode ahead. I'm super excited about this. This is going to be a good time. I don't think my guest knows what to expect. As a matter of fact, my guest is going to be just riding on this one. But we got you. Me and the Kosh listeners, we totally got you. So without further ado, this week's guest is Jim Fielding, author of All Pride, No Ego. Jim, how's it going?
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Timber.
No, thanks for making time. I was talking to your publicist, and that was the first time I talked to a publicist. So I felt some kind of way about that.
But she told you we've known each other. I mean, we're friends. I mean, she's an incredible publicist and communications person, but we worked together. Oh my gosh, how many years ago now? 18 years ago at Disney, I think probably I met her.
Oh,
yeah, 19 or 15, 18 years. Yeah. So anybody that works with me now is doing it out of the kindness of their heart. And, it's like a freelance side gig, and she's been amazing.
Well, she was amazing to work with, and she makes things happen. Because I'm not gonna lie, when I first had communications with her, I had a car accident, so my communication was a little shoddy, but she kept me on point, and
It's super professional.
Well, not just that, but you know what? She's a Smith, and since I'm a Smith, and I know we're cousins somewhere.
I'm sure all Smiths are related.
We are all related. I'm not gonna lie. She
is a good person for you to know. If she's your cousin, you're really lucky.
Hey, I believe that. You know what? I was looking at her and I was like, she might be an auntie. Might be a cousin. Just might be. I'm just saying.
Oh, she's good people.
Okay. So Jim, we're gonna jump in, and Kosh listeners, we're gonna do things just a little bit differently than how we normally do, since Jim is a different guest, not necessarily from the Kosh. So we're just gonna flow with this one. We're gonna try to figure through what this is gonna look like, but I promise you it'll be a great time, and we're gonna learn together. That's what we're really gonna do. So my first question to you, Jim, is can you please tell us about yourself? How did you have a connection here with the Kosh?
Yeah, well, I was just up there. My gosh, is it 2 weeks ago now? I spent a day at Oshkosh Industries and toured the facilities and spent a lot of time with the team up there, and then did a presentation about my book to one of their employee resource groups. And, it turns out I never lived near you guys, but I lived in Madison. I lived in Minneapolis. I kind of lived on both sides, and I'm a Midwesterner. I was born in Toledo, worked all over the Midwest, Michigan and Chicago and Minneapolis, and went to school at Indiana University. So I'm very Midwestern, and I felt very at home when I was in Oshkosh and Appleton, although I was there and it was about -5. I think the high was -3.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, I forgot about this. Because I live in Atlanta now, and I was like, oh, but I was ready. I mean, I had read the weather report, so, but it was beautiful, and the people were great, and it felt, even though I never lived there, it felt very at home. I felt very comfortable there.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say. So you said you were ready. Does that mean that when you flew in with a winter coat? That's my real question.
I did. I had winter coat, gloves, scarf, hat. Like, I wasn't, yeah. I lived in Madison. I lived in Minneapolis. I remember what winter's like.
No.
So
Okay, well, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. If I ever get the opportunity to live somewhere warm, I'm gonna forget about all of that as quickly as I can.
oh, I had to go to the drawer. I had to go to the cold weather drawer to get out the hat and scarf and gloves. But
Oh,
I still have it. I still have them.
I love it. Can you tell us a little bit what about? Well, let's just go straight to the fact that you are an author
Mm,
and you have this amazing book. And I'm in the process of listening to it myself right now. I have made it through chapter 5. I am pulling up these lessons. Can you share with the Kosh listeners about your book?
yeah.
Why did you decide to write a book? Like, I think that's an on taking.
It was. Well, it was partially driven by COVID, the pandemic, because I was living in California at the time. We were on shutdown. That was pretty isolating. And I I'd been a journaler my entire life. And so I had a bunch of journals that probably started middle school, high school for me. And I had them in lots of different places. And one of the things I did during the pandemic was kind of buy one of those big tubs from Target, one of those big plastic tubs. And I was like, I'm going to put all the journals in one place because someday I was thinking about not morbidly, but I was like, when I'm gone, my nieces, my family are going to love reading these. Like it's they're going to be funny to them. And then I started reading them. And people had always told me, you have an interesting story. You have such an interesting leadership philosophy. You've worked for some of the biggest companies in the world, like Disney and DreamWorks and Fox. And, you should tell your story. And I didn't really know if it was marketable, right? I didn't know if a publisher would want the story. But I wrote a treatment, like a 10-page sample basically, and sent it out to a couple of publishers and found several that were interested, but one in particular, John Wiley, who I'm with, was really, really interested. And then they basically taught me how to be an author, right? They really taught me how to, what the process was like. And it took me about 11, 12 months to write between all the different drafts. And originally it was going to be about 18 months, but we moved the publication. It was originally supposed to be spring of 2024. Right now it's supposed to be coming out. We moved it up to fall of 23. And so that pushed my timeline a little bit. And, it's a leadership and life lesson book. You've listened to it now, Timber. So it's organized around 10 lessons. You're through 5 of them. And each chapter, each section, it starts out with what the life lesson is. And then I tell personal and professional stories of how my life led me to that learning and how that became one of my life lessons and part of what made me a leader. And I think the other reason I wrote it bluntly is representation matters. And, as a queer
Facts.
executive, yes, as a queer executive, there's not many of us that made it to the C-suite. I was the CEO of Claire Store. I was president of Disney Store. And I felt like I was writing it for people who felt like they had been marginalized or passed over or not listened to show them that it was possible. Because as I said, representation matters.
Oh my God, representation matters. And I don't think people always understand that. Like, when you don't, it's hard to dream what you don't see.
100%. Or if you think the world is not built for what you are, right?
Right.
Like if you have dreams, but then you look around and you're like, no one's going to respect those dreams. I think that's even a worse feeling. Like you have dreams and you feel that like something about you makes those dreams not possible. And that was my reality.
Mm, I get that. I get that in so many ways. My feeling is sometimes you're dreaming and you just don't, you think, you don't realize that sometimes your dream's the same as everyone else's, and you're thinking it looks different because you are different.
Yeah. Well, and for a lot of my life, I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, for your listeners, and I thought there was nobody else like me. Like I thought something had happened, that like I was some kind of there was something wrong with me, basically. And I think one of the great things about putting a story like this out in the world is I've met so many people who are like, oh my gosh, you told my story, or oh my gosh, I really resonated with that learning. And it doesn't matter like race, age, gender, identification, sexuality. Like I'm so thrilled that that's the way the book's being received, that there's something in there for everybody.
Yeah, most
And
definitely.
yeah, I love that.
I definitely have been pulling the lessons, and I like how it's organized. And you know what I really, really appreciate about it? I
Hmm.
appreciate how thankful and gracious you are through the book. Like you name names, like you do shout
Oh,
outs and you
oh,
give so much credit to those people who've been part of your journey. And it just showed to me that you were a true leader, because true leaders to me celebrate those people who do the work, who build them up
100.
as leaders. And you consistently and constantly did that throughout the book. And it was something I sincerely noticed and I took away from that. And I was like, okay, that's what's up. That's what's up.
That's nice. Thanks, Timber. I mean, yeah, listen, I would not be where I am today without those people that I mentioned in the book and everybody else that, didn't make it into the book. And, I mean, a lot of the teams I worked with let me experiment, let me make mistakes, right? I talk about in the book that I made tons of mistakes and I had a lot of insecurities and vulnerabilities, but I kept trying to fail forward. If I made a mistake one time, I would try and put it in the memory bank and say to myself, let's not do that one again. Right. Okay. You learned, let's not do that one again. But, you know, I, I had teams that were willing to kind of like go on the ride with me, go on the journey with me. And I definitely, as I matured, as I got more confident, as I learned more, I definitely became a better leader. I definitely became a better manager. But I think really what I was trying to do in the book is I just became a better person. I think I just became when I embraced my story and my authenticity and my truth, I became a calmer, better, more well rounded person, which just spilled over into everything in my life.
Can I share what my favorite mistake was in the book?
Yes.
I love when you said something out loud and you didn't and slapped the table and didn't realize that you said it out
It
loud.
had a bad word in it.
It
Yeah.
it it had flavor to it.
Had, it had a flavor. And yeah, it's so funny you love that story, Timber. But I think I did that. I wanted younger people to know that like we're not perfect. I think a lot of people would look at my resume, right? Or look at my LinkedIn profile and they'd say, man, this guy had it going on. And how lucky was he? And look at this incredible career he had. And I wanted people to know again that I had moments where I did things wrong and I had moments of frailty and I had moments of insecurity. And that was a particularly tough meeting where I thought I was using my inside voice, that I was talking to myself in my head. And as Timber knows, I said a bad line out loud. And the two people sitting on both sides of me had to say, you just said that out loud. And I had to politely excuse myself, go to the bathroom, splash some water on my face, and then come back into the room and apologize because what I had said was completely unprofessional and inappropriate and not leadership behavior, but it was real.
It was human. And that's
Yep.
probably why I liked it so much. Like I can
Yeah.
respect an authentic human response.
And it wasn't authentic. I was feeling not listened to, not respected, borderline bullied,
Bruh.
and I reacted.
Facts. Okay. What chapter do you think might be the most impactful for a reader? And what was the lesson of that chapter?
I think there's a couple as I've been out on this tour. I mean, chapter 3, which was Don't Let Anyone Dim Your Light, is a very popular topic for discussion because
Facts.
it's also known as the bullying chapter. And it was the hardest chapter to write. It was the hardest chapter to read in the audiobook. Timber, we were talking before we got on. I had to re-record that section a lot because I got super emotional reading it. And, they don't want you sounding like you've got tears rolling down your face when you're reading it. And so I had to keep doing it over and over again, which just made it worse. But I think that chapter, which really, it was about how I had been bullied as a kid and then how that manifested later in my life when I felt that I was bullied in corporate situations. And even though I thought I had managed that trauma and had parked that childhood away, that like that inner child in me came out in the wrong situation. So I think that's a really interesting chapter for people. I think the other chapter that gets a lot of conversation, you haven't listened to it yet because it's Learning 9, is selfish is not a bad word. And how I learned about really, how I describe selfish as self-care. And that I had to learn as I grew to take care of my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs to make sure my batteries were charged. And if I did that, that again, I was a better person, a better manager, a better leader, just a better person to be around. But I had been raised in a house where selfish was a bad word, where you got time out, and I write about, well, I talk about, you'll listen to me, Timber, but I talk about little Jimmy sitting in the corner, thinking about what he had done. You were selfish. So you're going to sit here for 20 minutes and look at the corner and think about it. And basically, I sat in the corner the whole time thinking how horrible my my parents were, how unfair the situation was. I don't think I learned anything staring in the corner.
Bruh.
But I was raised that selfish was a bad word. And I heard that, well into my late 40s until I really started learning. And really where it occurred to me, it's funny, I just flew back from a book tour in California. I just flew back today. And it's where it really struck me when I was writing the book is when you do fly and they say, if the cabin loses its pressure and the air mask comes down, put yours on first before you help anyone else.
Facts.
That's kind of what that whole learning is about.
Okay. Another favorite part of the book is the lessons of your dad. Like that. Like, let's be real. Like, your dad is everybody's dad. Like, them old schools, that old school stuff.
Western dad, totally.
I was feeling dad. Dad was just keeping it 100.
100 all the time. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm so much like him. As I get older, I realize how much I am like him. I wanted to make him proud. I wanted him to never be disappointed. And I spent a lot of my life feeling like I was disappointing him because I couldn't be the total spitting image of him. I was the firstborn in my family, so firstborn male. My dad was a fireman and policeman, an all-state football player. I was none of those. And I always felt that I wasn't the son that he wanted. And that was hard. But as we got older, I realized we came together and, I think one of the hardest things about the book is, we lost him it is 11 years ago now. And I wish he was here for it. I wish he was here to read the book. I wish he could go on tour with me. I think he would love meeting some of the audiences I've been with. I talk to him all the time. I feel him. He's in me. He's in my head. He's in my heart. I hear him constantly. But we had our highs and our lows. Let's just say that. But by the end, it was really, really good.
I think that's standard parent-child relationships, right?
Yeah. He thought his job was to protect and provide, and the emotions and all of that was supposed to come from my mom. And he did protect and provide. And when he didn't understand something, he just withdrew, which I misread as cutting me off, right? Or
Right.
cutting me out. And it was ultimately, he was protecting me, he thought. And I didn't, I honestly, Timber, I didn't have the communication skills to really sit down with him and express what I needed. That came later in life. But for the younger people in the queer community, I use my dad all the time as an example because he's an example of you can teach an old dog new tricks, because my dad was a huge advocate and ally for the community by the end of his life. At the beginning, not so much, but at the end, he was.
Okay. And that's huge. And I like huge. That lesson.
Growth.
I like that's growth.
Yeah, that's growth. He grew.
All right. You know what? I'm going to save. I've got more questions, but I'm going to save them. And we're going to jump into you being on the Kosh. All right.
Yay. I love it.
And so, okay, the Kosh, we've got let me ask you this. What are you currently doing? I mean, other than touring around and telling people about your amazing book, I mean, what's going on with you?
Yeah. I'm a partner at an independent media company based in New York called Archer Gray. We make film and television and documentaries, but the part of Archer Gray that I like, my day job, it's called Archer Gray Collab, and we consult on branding and marketing strategies for companies. So I have a couple big consulting clients right now I'm working on projects for, but that's my day job.
Okay.
And then my nights and weekends job is author, speaker, executive coach.
All right. If you weren't doing what you're doing right now professionally, what would you like to be doing?
Oh my gosh. I would have loved to have been a high school government social studies teacher.
What?
Bruh.
Yeah.
Of all the things.
I know. I got a bruh. I would have loved that. I would have loved to be teaching like civics and American history and history of politics.
You get down like that? You like politics and stuff? Or
I did.
is
I majored in political science at Indiana. I was a teaching assistant, like a graduate assistant, my senior year. I thought I wanted to be a professor. I had an amazing professor who was like a mentor for me who said, "You don't want to be a professor. What you really like is the teaching part. And that means you're going to end up being like a teacher in high." Like he said to me, he's like, "I think you're destined for more than being a high school teacher."
right.
And, but I'm a lifelong student and lifelong learner, and I'm fascinated by global politics, socioeconomic policies, things like that. So I'm constantly reading and learning about it.
Okay. Jim, we're about to jump into segment 1. Segment
Okay.
1 is called What in the World is Going On With? That's where you start with the phrase, what in the world? And then you tell us what's on your mind.
Okay. I would say, what in the world is going on with the weather? I know, like climate change, the patterns in the weather, I'm really trying to understand because we just had a really big cold snap in Atlanta that was like unheard of, like first coldest has been in 25 years.
Mm,
And I used to think living in Atlanta, like in the summer, it's hot and humid that impacts you, but weather was never really part of our discussion in Atlanta because it was just kind of okay. The weather was fine, right?
right.
Living in California for 25 years, we didn't really talk about the weather that much. But now I just got back from California and everybody was talking about the weather. All the Californians were talking about the weather, the rain, the cold, the big waves. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why? Like, what have we done something to the earth? Are we doing something to the earth? What is changing these patterns? So I'd say that's been on my mind lately.
Okay. I like it. I don't know. We in Wisconsin, we always talking about the weather. Most of it not
You
so
are.
kind.
When I lived in Minneapolis, when I lived in Minneapolis, Chicago, Toledo, we were always talking about the weather. But California, we never did because it was basically like, oh, it's sunny, right?
Okay. My what in the world is going on with is what in the world is going on with this Taylor Swift so-called holy war
Oh,
that is about to go, that is supposedly gonna happen. Let me I got feelings
share
about
that
that.
with your readers. Yeah, share, please.
Okay, so I was checking it out. It popped up on my TMZ today. And so TMZ is talking about, about how there is a party of ours that is going to start is gauging a war against this pop star because they are worried about the influence that she may have upon electorate, right? And I'm thinking that's got to be some of the dumbest strategy that I done ever heard. Do they know who they messing with? Look, I think there's 2 women in the United States you don't mess with. You don't mess with Taylor Swift and you don't mess with Beyonce. Those are problems you just don't really want. And let me throw in Michelle Obama in there too. I'm gonna throw her in there too because that's another problem.
And maybe Oprah.
Maybe Oprah, but I don't think Oprah. Oprah's gangster, so I think she's quiet. Like she do things don't nobody know. Like you're never gonna know that Oprah did it to you. So I think that's different.
Okay, all right, I'll go with you on that.
All right, because she old school, right? She done been a billionaire a minute. She ain't new to this, so I mean, but this Taylor thing, and I'm just thinking, riddle me this: all of the press that has been on Taylor Swift lately, and really, she hasn't said anything. All she's done is go support her boyfriend who plays football. She's been a fan. That's it. She ain't said nothing. She didn't say she was going to do anything. She ain't ask people.
She doesn't do press. She doesn't even do press.
Right. She didn't say put the camera on me. She didn't say look at me. You know what I mean? She literally hasn't done anything but gone and supported her man playing his sport, and the world is on fire about this. And what kind of message is that sending to young ladies who, make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great one, Timber, because I don't think it does make sense. I think and in a weird way, I just feel sorry for her because she's just constantly under the spotlight, right? Constantly under scrutiny, like has no private space, has no personal space. And I think she has handled herself, to your point, beautifully, because I think, I think it's a genuine relation. I don't know these people, but it appears to be a genuine relationship.
Right.
And she's genuinely cheering on her boyfriend, who, by the way, was having an incredible career before he ever started dating Taylor Swift. It's not like, I mean, Hall of Fame, Super Bowl rings, like, one of the best tight ends of all time. I'm sure people will debate that. but a really good tight end. You know what I mean? Like, he had a life. Right?
Facts.
He had his own brand. He had his own life going. He was doing TV commercials. Like, he doesn't need anything from her. Like,
right.
He didn't need any of her spotlight.
Well, neither one of them needed anything from each other except for each other. That's it.
Exactly. And it's like, we all want people to have happiness in their life. Like, and we can't just ever give people the space to just be happy.
Well, I wouldn't say we all want it, because I can think of some people who might not. And they're in political spaces. I'm just saying, there's just, I ain't gonna say no names, but and number two, how does a party come up with a strategy to say, we're going to attack probably the most popular pop star, definitely in the US, but it might be in the world? You got to be kidding me. That make it make sense. That's all I'm going to say.
I know.
All right.
A good one.
I'm going to leave that alone. All right. We are ready for our next segment. Our next segment is called 21 Questions. Now, there are not 21 questions, but we might get 21 answers, because these are the good in-depth questions. Now, Jim, don't try to hold nothing back.
I won't. I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First question. What are you grateful for?
My family. Friends and family, for sure.
What motivates you?
Trying to do small things to make the world kinder and a better place for people.
I like that. What grounds you?
My Midwestern roots. Toledo, Ohio. Toledo, Ohio blood.
What does success look like to you?
Serenity, peace, happiness. Like, not searching anymore, just being. Just living and enjoying every day.
What irritates you?
How long is the podcast?
Oh, we got time. We got time.
It kind of goes with my other answer. People who are unkind irritate me. People who are entitled irritate me. People who are arrogant. Like, I always say, I love confidence. I hate arrogance. I think you understand that. Like, people who are arrogant for no real reason to be arrogant, and people who think they have all the answers and want to share all those answers with you, which I think kind of goes with the arrogance.
I think it goes with the Midwest. I call those Wisconsin know-it-alls.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Stop. They're everywhere, though. They're not just in Wisconsin. They're everywhere.
Oh, I believe that. What scares you?
My mom having dementia right now and watching her slowly, we're slowly losing her, losing her mind. And that scares me.
What recharges your soul?
Good music, good theater, good food, and conversation with friends.
How do you define love?
Being accepted 1,000% unconditionally for all that you are.
What is the greatest lesson that you've been taught from a parent, a guardian, a mentor?
I would say from my parents, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Like, I think that was ingrained in my family from a very early age. And I think I've carried it with me my whole life.
Okay. You have survived 21 questions.
It was a pleasure. I was sweating. Applause.
Oh, yeah, you're not off the hook. We move into the next segment.
All right.
Next segment is called Word Association. This is where I'm going to say a word to us and you tell us what's on your mind. All right. And
Okay.
we have a tradition here on the Kosh, and we start off with the word that unifies us all, the word that makes us all smile, the word that brings us all together. And that word is food.
Food. What is the first thing I think of when you say food?
Yeah. Word association.
Cheesecake.
Mm.
Love cheesecake. I don't know why. I haven't had it in a while, but it just came to my mind when you said that.
What kind of cheesecake? Do we got
I'm
a
a
favorite?
classicist. No, I'm a classicist. I like thick sour cream cheesecake, but I don't really love flavors. Like I like classic with fruit on top, strawberry or cherries.
Facts. Okay, I'm feeling you on that. Cocktail or beer?
Cocktail.
What's the cocktail of choice?
Dirty Tito's martini. Dirty, like filthy. I will also say.
Oh,
Like
cloudy.
Cloudy, yeah, filthy. And if you have blue cheese olives, even better. If I can have stuffed blue cheese olives in that dirt, even better.
Jim, I did get to the part of the book to understand that you are a little bougie. I'm just gonna call you out. I'm just letting you know.
I own it. If you wanted the non-bougie one, as you know from the book, you should have had my sister on.
No. I want
She's
the bougie one. I want the bougie one.
Oh yeah. I mean, I drank a lot of beer in my life, but if you ask what I want now, I want that dirty martini.
Well, I'm glad we share a love of Tito's because that's my vodka of choice myself.
I love Tito's. Love.
Shop local.
I haven't spent a ton of time there, but I have to say, when I went to Oshkosh Industries, they brought me Manderfield's donuts, I think they're called. And there was a bacon maple donut in that box that was pretty much a little donut from heaven. And the whole box was looking at me. And they told me that I think they've been around forever, but I like a good donut too, along with cheesecake. I have a sweet tooth, in case your listeners can't tell, but I haven't shopped a lot of other places there. But if I was shopping, I would buy one of the fire engines that they make at Oshkosh Industry because they were so cool. It was like a little boy fantasy being in there.
Okay, well, you say you stay in Atlanta, right? So what's your shop local in Atlanta?
Oh my God. My shop local in Atlanta is, I am now officially a wings connoisseur. Like, I eat so many wings in Atlanta. I always liked, chicken wings, but in Atlanta, I really, really like chicken wings. And the other thing is I love Southern breakfast. So grits, biscuit, pancakes, bacon, like a really good Southern breakfast. And there's a cafe not far from our house called OK Cafe that I would go to every day for breakfast if my stomach and blood pressure couldn't handle it.
When you said wings, if I could give you a high five right now, I would totally be giving you a high five.
Oh, I think I didn't know how many flavors and ways there were to make wings, Timber, until I moved to Atlanta. And now I'm like searching out, wings. And I have a really dear friend here who we knew each other in Chicago, a woman I worked with in Chicago. And we call it Breakfast Club. And every 2 or 3 weeks we go to breakfast, and we refuse to repeat. We're just trying all these different breakfast places in Atlanta. We probably should have written it as a book, but it's just a thing for us now. We're like searching out the best breakfast in Atlanta.
If you write that book, I want to read that one too.
Yeah.
Because Atlanta is a destination. Yeah, Atlanta is a
foodie town. It's a foodie town too. People don't realize how foodie it is. It's got some amazing food.
Concert.
Wow. I mean, we just talked about it. Beyonce was unbelievable. We went and saw Renaissance in New Orleans, and it was an incredible experience.
Streaming.
I mean, probably favorite streaming service is Netflix. Show I'm currently streaming, I have 2. Griselda, the new one that just came out with Sofia Vergara as the drug queen of Colombia, on Netflix. And then the reality show Traitors on Peacock. That is fascinating. It's like a fascinating social experiment to me. It's like a game. It's like a 24 people in a house playing a game. And I think it's incredible. It's called The Traders.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that one out, and I
It's on
will.
Peacock.
I'm right now. What gets watched? Peacock is probably the streaming service of choice in my house right now, but that is because my
Mm.
wife has an addiction to the housewife shows.
Oh, and they're all in there.
Mm-hmm. That and Vanderpump's Rules. We are going through we are re-going through the series.
Oh my God. I love it.
Community.
I mean, I think when you say that to me, I mean, the first thing I think about is gratitude. Back to the earlier question you asked me is I'm just so grateful for the community that I've built and that I live in because I think they give me so much.
Last word, diversity.
I mean, my God, I have so many words for this one. I mean, diversity, I mean, the first word I think about is belonging, but I think it's the other word that came to mind when you said it is that I want to celebrate and amplify diversity because I think that's what makes America great. And I love the mixing of all of our stories, the mixing of all of our backgrounds. I think that's the thing that I really love about America.
Facts. All right. All right. Thank you, Jim. We have made it through word association.
Nice.
All right. Okay. The next segment is called the Kosh Hidden Gems. And what the Kosh Hidden Gem is for our guests to share a hidden gem. And this hidden gem can be anywhere. Something that you think maybe it's something we all know about, but we don't know the details about it or certain special details about it. Or maybe it's something many of us don't know about. And you have traveled. And so I'm super curious to hear what your secret gem might be.
Wow. I think my secret gem might be going for dim sum lunch in an authentic Cantonese dim sum restaurant in Hong Kong. And there's so many of them, I don't even have to name a name, but I just was in San Francisco for the book tour. I went and had dim sum in San Francisco, and I was having flashbacks to being in Hong Kong. I've been to Hong Kong a lot of times because of my career, and those dim sum lunches and just the food and the storytelling that went on. And I think that's like it's not super touristy. Like go where the locals go for lunch, basically, and just enjoy an authentic Cantonese dim sum lunch.
Okay.
It's food again. It's food again, Timber. It's always food, right?
And Jim, I'm gonna have to ask: did you eat before you came on the Kosh? No.
No, I know. I'm okay. I am going to go after this. I'm going to have dim sum and some cheesecake. Yeah, no, I did not eat.
I love it. I love it. All right. I'm going to tell you what you shouldn't do. Don't go grocery shopping. It's going to cost you a lot of loot.
I'm not. It's going to cost me too much money. I can't eat I can't eat this late at night. It's bad for you.
Oh no, I'm with you on that. That's heartburn city. Okay.
Yeah, I won't sleep.
All right. So next segment is my favorite segment of the Kosh. And we talked a little bit. Well, you mentioned while you were talking about the Simdun, I think I just totally misenunciated that, but it was close. It was close. And it's called Story Time. And this is the opportunity for our guest to share a story with us. And that story can be anything. So, Jim, what do you got for us?
Any story.
Yes.
What's a good story lately? I mean, I'll share a story that just happened this week from, again, I'm being out on the tour. I was at an event in San Francisco at a bookstore, and two people walked in that had worked with 20 years ago. And one of them, 20 years to 15 to 20 years ago, one of them brought her daughter, who is now 18. And I remember holding her when she was born, and she brought her into the office. Her name's Charlotte, and she's now going off to college in the fall. And that was just like, it was just such an amazing moment because I loved this woman that worked with me for a long time. Her name is Tammy. She was an incredible employee. I really respected everything she did. We just really worked well together. And to see her, had not seen her in probably 10 years. And then for her to come to the event and then bring her 18-year-old daughter, who I remembered being born, like I remembered as an infant. And then talking to her daughter as the young adult she is and what school she was picking and where she was going to go in the fall. And it just felt like a really full circle moment. And I wrote in the book that I love spending time with the children of my friends. Like because I don't have my own children, I think there's something really magical about your friends and people that you respect, spending time with their offspring and seeing like the DNA and the genetics just come to life. I think it was just such a great full circle moment. It's just very fresh in my mind.
Didn't make you feel old?
It did. There's a lot of things that make me feel old now, but it did because I remembered her as a baby, but it also made me feel warm. Now, what's making me feel old this week is my youngest niece, who I wrote about in the book, is turning 21 on the 2nd. So in 2 days, that makes me feel really old. To have 23 and 21-year-old nieces does not seem possible because I have such a vivid memory of them as children.
Facts. I love how you talk about it in the book, what kind of uncle you are. You are definitely the gunkle.
Yeah.
Doting, spoiling, and then you're going to give them back.
100%.
And you stated it.
I owned it. It's the bougie part, Timber. I would buy, all of your listeners will know, I was the uncle who would buy like the 100% silk dresses that had to be dry cleaned and that my sister would look at and say, all she's going to do is throw up or poop on this, you realize. And I'm like, I don't care. One good picture. I want one good picture. And then whatever happens to that dress, I don't care. I overindulged them, but I'm super proud of them. They're both such successful women and have done so well in college. And the older one's out in the work world now. And they're good. They're really, really good people. And I love them as adults. I loved them as kids. I loved them as toddlers. I love them as adults.
Well, I could definitely tell you are a good gunkle. That's pretty awesome.
People would want me to be their gunkle. Like when I would go a lot when the kids were in school. I'd spend a lot of time with them in Arizona and kind of give my sister and her brother-in-law the weekend off. And so I would go to like school functions and stuff. And like the other moms would come up and be like, do you want to be my kids' uncles? Do you want to be my kids' uncle? Like I was uncle for hire. But it wasn't just because I gave them stuff. It's just I loved being present with them. I loved being it. But I do have to say it's the best job on earth because at some point they do get given back. And there's somebody else's responsibility. Ultimately, they have a mother and a father, and they're their responsibility.
I love that you said the quiet part out loud. No.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Ruin them. Feed them. Get them all hyped up on sugar. Give them too many sugar drinks, and then say, oh, it's time to go home.
Yep. I feel you on that. Okay. Thank you once again. Okay. All right. Now it's this time in the Kosh. Love it. Every single time I play that, it makes me smile. That's right.
Damn.
It's got a flavor to it, right? But what that sound means, Jim, is that it is time for the topic of the week. And the topic of the week is chosen by our guest 99.9% of the time. And this week is no different. So, Jim, what's going to be our topic of this week?
Our topic of the week is living with authenticity.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, I'm ready.
Oh, no. You just get to go. Tell us. Tell us about this Tell us how we do this.
I think all of us have a unique story, and we all have unique quirks and differences and strengths and developmental opportunities. And I think if, as a human being, you can accept all of that about yourself and really accept yourself unconditionally and bring all of that entire DNA mix that makes you who you are to the world, you can make the world a better place. And I think that you're going to be happier and the people around you are going to be happier. And you're going to create this community. We talked about the community word before, but you're going to create this community around you where people are embracing all of you and you live in a world without fear of judgment. And that is my goal, living that way.
This was something you kind of spoke about in the book, right? But there was a journey, because you sure
Huge
didn't.
journey.
You're right. You didn't start there. You did not start there. So, can we share with the listeners a little bit about that journey? And when did you realize that's what it was going to take for you to be the best you?
Oh, I think it was stages. It was definitely a journey, Timber. I mean, I talk about in the book, it was a journey of first discovery, like just trying to figure out who I was, what made me tick. Then I went through a period of self-loathing where I thought I was wrong and I was broken and I was different and I had to get fixed. Then I kind of got to self-acceptance, self-awareness, probably first, really understanding, then self-acceptance, saying out loud my truth, all of my truths. And then finally to a path of self-love, unconditional love. And I didn't really share my truth about my sexuality until I was 25, 26. So it was a long time of living a double life. And I don't think I fully accepted myself unconditionally until I was in my 40s. And so part of what I talk about in the book is I was blessed because I did have access to therapists and I had access to coaches. Like I had people that helped me on this path. Not everybody has those opportunities. And, part of what I write about is I want to help people kind of go through that path, go through that journey faster and younger so that they have longer in their life to really fully shine. And I feel like that's what I'm doing now. Like I feel more at ease, more complete than I have my whole life. Now, my hair's falling out. I have to have knee replacement surgery. There's some things that are happening, right? Because I'm getting older, but I'm happier than I've been in a long, long time.
I just think that message is so important to all of those who come from marginalized communities. Like
100%.
it's just so universal. I felt that.
Yeah. No, and it's a lot of the people from the marginalized communities that have really been the biggest supporters of the book. I mean, people of color and women and differently abled people and people who are on the autism spectrum. And like I've heard from so many different kinds of people, but just anybody who felt they did not fit the societal norm or the societal expectations. And I, and I've been there. I've been there myself. And listen, I am a 6'2" white male. So at first, when I enter a room or a new situation, the systems are kind of built for me, right? Like I have privilege from that. I wrote about this in the book, Timber, like I understood I had privilege. But the minute I share my story and my authenticity, I instantly marginalize myself, to your point. And I put myself into a different category. And so there was times where I wasn't comfortable sharing that truth, where I wanted to stay in the privilege, if I'm honest, and didn't want to have to deal with being judged or marginalized because I didn't like the way that felt. And then the older I got, I was like, you don't have a choice. This is who you are.
That just it feels some kind of way because as I connect with this and I relate to it, and I'm just thinking, I wish I had that moment.
You'll get it. You'll get it. I mean, I don't know the secret to it. Like I couldn't tell you exactly how I knew it and when I felt it, but it took me a long time. But once you feel it and you feel that at ease and you feel that grace, you don't want to not feel it anymore. Right. And then I think you work harder to like maintain it and keep it because once you feel it, it's like an endorphin rush almost.
What has been the feedback, your feedback from the LGBTQ community about your book?
I mean, they've been so warm about it. I mean, so many people who have written me, sent me messages through LinkedIn or Instagram or, wherever they find me who say, thank you for sharing your story. It feels a lot like my story, that like my story is more universal than I think that I realized, particularly from a lot of, I'd say gay men in their 50s and 60s, my peers. I think, those of us that kind of came out in the 70s and 80s and the AIDS crisis and things like that, I think there was a lot of commonality there. I had a woman at one of my tours a couple of weeks ago who I saw her in the audience and she was there with her husband. And I saw her get kind of teary when I was talking about some of the, answering some of the questions that were getting answered. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, I am a 47-year-old straight white woman with 4 kids whose dad was a fireman, whose mom struggled with alcohol, who never felt like she fit in. And thank you for writing this book because I've read so many books, and yours is the first book where I felt somebody really saw me. And I started to get emotional. And I thought, if I can have that connection with a 47-year-old straight white woman, mom of 4, I never intended that, Timber. Like I never thought that. And I thought that is a gift. That's a gift. And I want to hold on to it. That's a cherished gift.
That message is universal.
Yeah. And she said she'd been to therapy and, she'd read all these books and she said, I read your book. She had heard me on a podcast somewhere. And she said, I got your book and read your book. And I really felt seen. And that meant so much to me. So much.
All right. I want to take a moment and make sure that we repeat because, we keep saying the book, but
I know the book,
but maybe we should say what the book is and where can people find the book and also, and while you're touring, on your weekends and nights, how can people find Jim? How can we get Jim in our space to talk?
I love it.
And to talk about people, talk to our people and help them on their journey to being their authentic self.
100%. Well, the name of the book is All Pride, No Ego by Jim Fielding, myself. The subtitle is A Queer Executive Journey to Living and Leading Authentically. But if you search All Pride, No Ego, if you go into your local bookstore, which I love, local independent bookstores and Barnes and Nobles, of course, it's on Amazon, wherever fine books are sold, you can go to my website, www.allpridenoego.com. Follow me on Instagram at allpridenoego. Follow me on LinkedIn, James D. Fielding. It is me. It's not a chat bot answering you. If you ask me a question, that's me answering your question. And as far as the tour, I really publicize the tour on the website and on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And, I also say to listeners all the time, if you have a group or a company or, a nonprofit that you think would benefit from time and community with me, that's what I basically do when I'm on the road. Right. And so again, my connection, how I got to you was Oshkosh Industries, incredible woman there. Anybody who knows her, April Hirschman, who found me and brought me to Oshkosh Appleton. And it was an amazing, amazing visit. And it all started because she heard me. She's another person that heard me on a podcast.
All right, Jim, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to mess with your Instagram unless you're eating cheesecake somewhere on there. So I just want to put that out there because then, then I know
I'm going to do one for you. I'm writing that down.
Wait, we need a cheesecake picture. And remember,
a cheesecake moment.
Wait, classic cheesecake, not none of this other nonsense.
Cherry or strawberry topping.
That's right. That was.
I need a cheesecake moment.
Hey, I like.
I try not to eat. on Instagram, but okay.
Look, ain't nobody gonna be mad at you. Not over cheesecake. Us fellow cheesecake lovers out there.
Wisconsin. I'm on with Wisconsin, the land of cheese.
You really are, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm a cheesecake connoisseur, and I got it from my mama.
I think it is something that is passed down, right? Like, I think it's a heredity thing.
Facts.
I had a grandmother that was an incredible cheesecake maker. Ooh. And I think that's where I got it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, those are things. Those are gifts. Why when you think about the food, if you're lucky enough and your grandparents did make meals for you, why are those some of the greatest memories of all times?
Oh, amazing. I mean, it's funny. And and I'm sure like you, Timber, my sister and I have Grandma Fielding's recipe cards, but you can't recreate it because there's no measurements on there, right? Like everything's a pinch, some, right? And like she also, like my grandmother was famous for butterscotch pie. She made the most amazing butterscotch pie, which was, basically butterscotch filling in a homemade pie crust with the most amazing meringue. And we have tried and tried and tried. We had one aunt, her daughter, who could make it, who sadly has passed as well. My sister and I have tried and tried and tried to recreate this butterscotch pie, and it never tastes like grandma's. But man, do I have memories, like sensory memories of that pie.
I'm a firm believer that they don't put all the ingredients. Like they leave one little thing off. Like that's why you can never get there. Like they knew. Like they was like, no, I'm taking this with me.
Yeah, it's my special play. And it's in her handwriting. We literally have the card. It's so battered. We've tried so many times. We've gotten close. I'm not saying they're inedible. We've gotten close. It just doesn't taste exactly like hers.
All right, Jim. Okay. At this time, is there any last things you would like to say about your topic of the week?
It takes practice. It's not a light switch. So I'm not anything that I've said on here, anything I say in the book. It was a lifetime of trial and error. And so don't be hard on yourself and enjoy the journey, because it is a journey. And I would say that's what I want to say about that.
Okay. It's that time, Kosh listeners. We're going to start winding up this episode. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for giving us your minds and ears. Thank you for being interested enough about an engaged person, an impactful person, a person who's making our communities better. We get better by knowing about each other. Even though Jim is not Kosh, Jim is Kosh. He's one of us. That's facts. All right.
Honorary.
Definitely. And so what I want to say is, we are a work in progress. Please help us become the best podcast we can be. How do you do that? Well, you can write to us. Let us know how we can improve the show. You can ask to be a guest, and you can recommend a guest. And you're like, how do I do that, Timber? Well, let me tell you how you do that. You do that by emailing us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. And then I have one more request for you, Kosh listeners. And you know what I need? I need y'all to just take a quick moment while you're listening to this episode of The Kosh and hit that subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. And then also, if you got a few extra seconds, write us a quick review. Just write us a quick review. What that does is it improves our analytics. What does analytics do? It helps this podcast get in front of the eyes and ears of more of our community members. Once again, we think we have something really special here. This is us learning about our neighbors, both citywide, region-wide, and apparently now worldwide. And this is fantastic. All right. So, all right, Kosh listeners, you know what time it really is about to be right now. It is shout out time. Jim, who you got for shout outs?
I want to shout out, we were talking about her earlier, your cousin, Sean Smith.
Facts.
I want to, yes, she's my incredible publicist. I want to shout out Ben Patano, who helps me with all my digital marketing, Blake Colazzo, who helps me with all my scheduling. And I want to shout out my publisher, John Wiley and Sons, who helps make this all work.
All right. Well, I'm not going to lie to you, Jim. Normally I have a super long shout out list, but I'm not going to go like that this week. What I'm going to do instead is I want to send a special shout out to all the UPS workers who might be getting laid off. Like, I feel you. My wife is a UPS worker. She wanted to make sure that we recognize y'all, and whatever happens, I hope you come out better on the other side. No ifs, ands, buts on that one. And then I always got to send a special shout out to my wife once again for allowing me to podcast in the house. And now, instead of just taking up her Saturdays, I am taking up her nights and evenings too. But she loves me and she'll forgive me. And then lastly, I just really, really want to send a special shout out to both Sean Smith and Jim. I appreciate you so much for making time to be on the Kosh, talking to our Kosh listeners, sharing your amazing story, the message, what it means. Like, I'm eager. And I'll tell you right now, I'm an audiobook dude. So like, I'm basically clicking away 40 minutes at a time as I drive to and from work. So I'm going to have this done in about a day and a half, and then we'll be good.
Right, you let me know.
I'm going to let you know, for sure. And I appreciate you, and you are always welcome here on the Kosh.
I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure.
We have one last thing to do, Jim.
Sure.
And this is how we close it out. You've got 3 choices. The 3 choices are: you can share some parting words of wisdom with the Kosh listeners. That's option A. Option B: what would yourself today tell your 13-year-old self? And then option C: like a good multiple choice test, I have to give you an all of the above.
Okay. I'm going C. I'm going all of the above. I'm feeling it.
Let's go.
So my piece of advice for the listeners, my thought: may we leave our corner of the world better than we found it. That's my thought. What I would tell 13-year-old Jim is love yourself, believe in yourself, and be strong, because you're right where you're supposed to be.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Jim, thank you so much for being on the Kosh.
Thank you.